Hey, this is Victoria Leigh, back again today with more Beatles conspiracies. I make short videos that pertain to the Beatles conspiracies and Paul is dead topics. If this topic is not something that resonates with you, I recommend watching other content that better accommodates your belief system. All videos are for informational purposes only. I am presenting to you research and findings related to this topic. If you are new to Beatles conspiracy or Paul is dead topics and would like to learn more, please check out Mike Williams' Paul is Dead channel on YouTube. Then choose the Newbies playlist. The link is in the description box below. Please remember, some Beatles conspiracy themes are for mature audiences only. I hope you will enjoy the presentation. Osiris was the king of Egypt, lineage from Ra, creator of the world. Isis was his wife. Set is Osiris's brother, and he wanted to be king. Set kills Osiris and dismembers him. Isis collects all but one part and reassembles him, improvising with a stone fashioned for the missing male part. Isis becomes pregnant and gives birth to Horus. There was a flash of lightning at the time of conception. The story of Osiris is often contradictory and is an ancient myth. Many accounts of the Osiris and Set story indicate that Osiris was dismembered into 13 parts, with the 14th part being missing. The 14th part, or male part, was thrown into the Nile and eaten by a fish, resulting in the reluctance of Egyptians to eat fish. Isis and Nephthys go out looking for Osiris's body part. These goddesses are linked to falcons and kites, with Horus being represented by the falcon. Death and renewal are associated with flooding of the Nile, with the flooding being Isis's tears or Osiris's body fluids. Thoth, the god of the moon, and Anubis, god of embalming and funeral rites, help put Osiris back together again. Osiris was the first mummy. The theme of the Osiris and Set story deals with kinship, succession, order versus disorder, death, and the afterlife. Set becomes angry with Osiris and wanted to kill him. The method of murder can vary with the story. One legend is that Set conspires with Nubia and others to kill Osiris. Nubia has a chest built to fit Osiris' dimensions, and at a party says it is a gift to whoever fits in it perfectly. When Osiris tried out the chest and it fit, the door slammed down on him, locking him inside. The chest was flung into the Nile River, where Osiris drowned. Afterwards, Isis retrieves his body. Some accounts say that Set ripped the eye out of Horus. This is where the eye of Horus comes from. Horus was the product of Isis' relations with Osiris remains. He stands in the way of Set being king. Set became king after Osiris's death. Horus eventually takes the throne from Set. The feud between Horus and Set lasted 80 years. Although it appears that Osiris was brought back from the dead, his revival was not permanent. Osiris is associated with being the ruler of the dead and can be found in the underworld. 14 and a fish. Where have we heard this before? I would guess this person has heard the story. Isis and Nephthys looking for Osiris are associated with falcons or kites. This implies that they are flying while looking for him. This is similar to witchcraft, where the witch may fly or out or disguise as a black crow or other bird-like creature to seek something. Remember in the video Free as a Bird, the story was told while flying. Who else are falcons associated with? Aleister Crowley. Note the falcon in the painting on the left. Who has a song about Mr. Kite? The Beatles. Also above is a sketch of John Lennon's that shows the spiral, an occult symbol. This is an example of a kite bird. And here we have a couple of kites. Within the legend of Osiris, it states that Isis took the form of a kite to give her husband back breath and virility. The two goddesses took the form of kites and kept a vigil over Osiris's body to fend off attacks from Set. The goddesses, as kites, did the singing for the funeral. for Osiris's funeral. A transcript of their songs can be found in a British museum. Which Beatle had a kite pattern in their astrology birth chart? John Lennon. A kite in a birth chart is considered beneficial. It deals with certain planets that form a kite pattern. It goes along with the 369 pattern as well as death and rebirth. John Lennon was the one who supposedly found the Mr. Kite poster in the antique store. It appears that the use of the name or word kite had a dual or layered meaning when used by the Beatles. Also, Libra is John's astrological sign, and it looks kite-like in the sky. Kites appear to be quite symbolic within the Beatles world. Kites are goddesses. Kites are birds. Kites are associated with funerals, death, and rebirth. Kites are associated with singing, specifically in the funeral setting. A kite pattern appears in John Lennon's birth chart and is associated with the 369 ideas. Research even suggests that the pyramids were built using kite-like objects to move the stones. John Lennon states that he found the poster about Mr. Kite in an antique store. The Beatles have a song on Sgt. Pepper called Being for the Benefit of Mr. Kite. Thoth is the god of the moon, wisdom, knowledge, writing, hieroglyphics, science, magic, art, judgment, is the Greek equivalent to Hermes, and stood on either side of Ra's solar bark. Aleister Crowley developed his own tarot deck called the Thoth deck. This is an example of the Fool card. Ra was the god who ruled all parts of the created world, sky, earth, and underworld, was believed to have ruled as the first pharaoh of Egypt. He was the god of the sun, god of order, god of kings, portrayed as a falcon, and shared characteristics of the sky god Horus. Ra is shown in many forms. Examples have the head of a falcon, the sun disk resting inside of a cobra perched on the top of his head. While in the underworld, Ra was depicted with the head of a ram. Also took on the form where his head was a beetle. Ra traveled through the solar bark, or boats that took him on his journey through the sky and into the underworld. This is often called a sunboat. Ra transformed into a ram-headed figure while traveling through the underworld. He was often accompanied by several other deities who ruled perception, command, and magic powers. The sunboat journey was attempted to be derailed each night by an enormous serpent who would try to stop the boat in its tracks with its hypnotic stare. The night boat would carry him through the underworld back towards the east in preparation for rebirth. When Ra was in the underworld, he merged with Osiris, the god of the dead. Sunboats that go into the underworld, yellow as in sun and under as in marine. Rams, where have we seen these before? So each day, the sunboat Ra flies through the skies, and each night it goes into the underworld. Each morning it rebirths or rises back up into the sky, just like the yellow submarine. Anubis, god of funeral rites, protector of graves, guide to the underworld, usually depicted with a canine head. Anubis helped embalm Osiris. In the Book of the Dead, a wolf-headed priest is shown in an illustration propping up a mummy. Anubis conspired with Sept to kill Osiris by slamming him in a trunk and sending him down the river. Remember the story about the chest that was thrown into the river? What about mummies? Figures in the wax of their deities were used in funeral rites of ancient Egyptians and deposited among their offerings and graves. A special process removes all moisture from the body, leaving a dried form that would not easily decay. The Egyptians felt it was important to preserve the body as lifelike as possible. The process took 70 days to complete. Special priests worked as embalmers. The first step was to remove the internal parts. The heart was left in place. It was considered the center of intelligence. Other organs were placed in canopic jars. Then the moisture was removed from the body. The wrapping was then applied. One mummy used 100 yards of linen. The tomb was readied for the afterlife with furniture, paintings, food, etc., placed in a coffin and sealed in the tomb. They believed that the mummified body was the home for their soul. Mummification was expensive and mostly for important or influential people. Since we're on the topic of mummies and wax figures, I've always just wanted to bring this small detail out that the 4 wax figures at Madame Tussauds Museum, as seen on top, are slightly different than the 4 below. At least 2 of them are. Paul and Ringo appear to be pretty sad on Sgt. Pepper. Odin was named for the one-eyed god and sometimes appears in disguise. He was a Norse or Scandinavian god, often pictured with his wolves, Jerry and Frinky, also Fenrir, often pictured with ravens, and who would fly about the earth each day and then report back to him. He's known by about 170 names. He gave up his eye to drink from the well of knowledge. His eye sacrifice was a symbol of devolution to knowledge and his willingness to suffer for it. God of wisdom, healing, death, royalty, sorcery, also known for charms and magic. And who is our favorite one-eyed beetle? That would be Billy Shears. I want to just take a moment here and address something that has come up. Several people have asked Sally, and I have had several discussions about this, and she has been asked on several occasions if she thought that Bill had removed his own eye, much like Odin did. And I am going to agree with Sally and say no. This was probably an eye injury from youth, probably very young youth, and possibly his real eye is still underneath it. It's just damaged to the point where it can't see, and they put a prosthetic above it. I do not think or want to encourage anyone else to think that this person removed his own eye. And touching on Pan, he is the god of the wild, shepherds, and flocks, also connected to fields, groves, wooded glens, fertility, and spring. Pan has the hindquarters and legs and horns of a goat. Pan is the child of Hermes. He's often depicted as playing the flute. He inspired Peter Pan. Now, Pan is also associated with sex, and the Peter Pan is no wordplay by accident. Crowley built an altar to Pan in Algeria where they performed a ritual to summon Pan. In Crowley's play, Rite to Eleusis, Pan pulls back the final veil, revealing the child Horus, who represents humanity, eternal and divine elements. Hymn to Pan was recited at Crowley's funeral. And in this picture, we have an actual photo of the rites of Eleusis being performed. This is Ian Anderson from Jethro Tull. He acts a lot like Pan. This video has examined some of the ancient Egyptian and Norse gods who, it appears, influenced the Beatles' conspiracies. It also examines a few side topics along the way. To connect the dots a little bit more, Aleister Crowley produced and starred in a play with his most favorite Scarlet Woman, Layla Waddell. In the closing scenes of the play, Pan pulls back the veil to reveal the child Horus. Pan was a powerful icon in Crowley's world, and at his own direction, Hymn to Pan was recited at his funeral. To those of you who watch my Pepper Time videos, you will be familiar with the fact that I have questioned on several occasions the relationship between Billy Shears and Aleister Crowley, even going so far as to suggest that they may be father and son. So when Crowley pulls back the veil in the play to present to the world baby Horus, who represents humanity and the divine elements, could he really have been telling us that he would love to have a baby Horus? A magical child, a Superman? Remember, Bio Paul represents Osiris, and Horus is the product of the created Osiris and Isis. The death of Paul resulted in the rebirth of Billy Shears. The rites of Eleusis was presented years before Bill was conceived. Was baby Horus really an idea of Crowley, a wish even? Also, if such were true, we must remember that Bill would have no control over who his biological father was. He might not want to come forward with such information, as the public might be condemning of him due to Crowley's reputation. Then, of course, it could simply not be true at all. The references to the ancient gods, whether they be direct or indirect, should not be ignored by researchers. Bill is Osiris, as he was rather constructed to look like they wanted. He was also Odin with one eye. He was Pan, playing the recorder, a flute-like instrument. He is Horse, a gift to humanity. I am sure there are more. In the years I have researched the Beatles, I never understood the Yellow Submarine. The gods topic is difficult and may not be your choice of reading materials, but when you realize that the Yellow Submarine is the raw boat that travels through the sky and into the underworld each night, this should be confirmation just how important the gods are in Beatleland, or is that Pepperland? It isn't an easy pill to swallow, the gods. These are ancient beliefs. This is what they believe in. It is also a method of symbolic communication between themselves to those who believe. I realize this topic may not have been the most interesting when you are hoping to learn more about the Beatles or whatever happened to Bio Paul. This information is, however, vital to understand if you want to continue learning things around the Beatles conspiracies, because the gods appear all the time in their music, photos, movies, and lives. I encourage you to watch this video, rewatch it, share it, and start noting for yourselves how big of an impact the gods play in the lads' lives. I plan on having some more short videos uploaded in the coming months, and I plan on referencing the information found in this video often, so please watch it, learn it, know it, bookmark it, whatever works. By the way, did you realize that this is probably where the name Layla came from? Eric Clapton is a close friend of George Harrison and had an affair with Harrison's wife. Clapton called her Layla. Layla Waddell was Crowley's favorite Scarlet Woman. We all know that that was a really great song from a long time ago, but it appears that at least its name origins are much older. Stay tuned, there's much more to come, and thanks for watching.